Hi, my name is Andrew Moy, Fortinet Business Development for Fabric and SD-WAN. Thanks for your time and thanks for joining this session. This session is on SOAR and EDR and where and when it gets applied. But I think there's also a broader perspective in realizing why applying such technologies is important to help deal with the evolving threat landscape that is increasing not only in volume, but getting more damaging and more distributed as we work from home. The impact goes beyond regulations and compliance, and many times it's going to be about fundamental business continuity. We now know that business cannot stop, and we want to know that in the shortest possible time, if our systems are being compromised and immediately remediating them. We see organizations having majority of their employees work from home, and things obviously have been made more complicated on this pandemic, where we see movement restrictions as well as lockdowns. CIO have seen more attacks, and senior leaders have also seen this new norm is changing the way we work in the near future. Teleworking will now mean that cybersecurity has to be dealt with in a broader, scaled up, more intelligent and automatic fashion. You may know that Fortinet has a very broad, integrated and automated cybersecurity offering. We look at our offerings in 4 different pillars that supports the vision of being totally integrated and automated. We have the Zero Trust Access, Security-Driven Networking, Dynamic Cloud Security, and the AI-Driven Security Operations. And all of them are part of our integrated and connected security fabric. Our SOAR and EDR solutions are part of that AI-driven security operations pillar that focus on making use of the actionable data and providing that much needed faster response. Now, let's touch on SOAR. Many will have known that this is the security orchestration, automation, and response that is a term that's coined by Gartner back in 2017. And we will talk about SOAR's relevance in today's modern-day security operations. Gartner has also mentioned in a 2019 note that security operations are moving beyond reactive and towards a proactive model to detect threats ahead of time and responding to them. The ability SOAR brings to the table that helps relieve and automate tasks that SOAR operators have to do manually today is an important part of helping us to get towards that proactive model. Let's look at why this is a complicated issue to start with. We know SOAR teams are very, very familiar with these 4 core complexities. These are also the reasons why security operations look at SOAR to help them remediate it. It's too often too many vendor products in the environment with very, very little integration with each other. Each vendor tool typically gets implemented as a silo, standalone way, and the security operator will keep having to switch between contexts when using them. And very likely they'll be missing out the opportunity to notice the actual threats. And with all the tools that you have, you will be generating an increasing amount of alerts that the analyst will quickly get overwhelmed and in turn open up for even more opportunities to miss associating the alerts that just might have that common link. The next one is about dealing with too many manual processes. That slows down the overall response because of the time needed to go through the endless alerts and the appropriate workflows at the same time. Human processes and workflows will also have the risk of missing out or skipping a bit of crucial steps, thereby creating a consistency challenge. And that will lead us to our last complexity, which is the lack of trained professionals. We all know there's a huge shortage of cybersec talent today. And when we consider those 3 complexities in tandem, the challenge of being understaffed is aggravated. Understaffed with an enormous task to tackle will turn an already challenging situation to an even more tricky one. Especially when you'll be maxing out the working capacity of the resources, it becomes a burnout situation and the team's mental well-being being challenged, and eventually that will lead to a human resourcing issue. Now, here comes SOAR. We name our SOAR products as FortiSOAR, which is a vendor-agnostic offering when it comes to integration. It really started as being an effective management platform for the security operations to handle security incidents with orchestration and automation in mind, and act as a platform for converting all the pen-to-paper processes through our playbooks, which simply means that it is a collection of well-defined actions and logic. And then we have that centralized and interconnect capability to all your existing tools. We have over 300 connectors today, connecting to different tools and different applications, and with thousands of use cases already being defined. Our customers and partners do also build their own connectors to new applications as well, or to use their own playbooks. FortiSOAR is being designed as a multi-tenant platform, meaning that it supports large organizations in a shared or distributed fashion, or for MSSPs that manages the client's environments on behalf. Now, let's talk a little bit on the profile of organizations that are most appreciative of products like FortiSOAR. At Fortinet, we have broadly classified the level of automation that the teams required, and we look at it based on the level of SOC maturity. Because organizations at different levels have different level of staffing, different levels of organizational structures, and SOCs at different levels have different needs and priorities. At level 1, we define it as the smaller one-person team that will most likely require logging and reporting. We have products like FortiAnalyzer that it could be a better fit. At level 2 is those teams with 2, 3, 4-person type of teams. They will likely be looking at FortiSIEM. And then at level 3, you'll find FortiSOAR, which is ideal for that more advanced security teams that needed that capabilities that are designed to work with those well-defined security processes and the need to manage a more sizable security stack. It is also really helpful when you are looking to streamline processes and putting in measurements to track and monitor the effectiveness and improvement. Now, what are the pillars that made up of FortiSOAR? SOAR adds that machine assistance to human security operators. The scope of these teams are not limited to just SIEM operators or SOC analysts. They could also include people that does incident response, compliance management, as well as threat hunters, so on and so forth. We have also seen customers create separate groupings that manages even security from the physical side of things, like theft and unauthorized entries. A fundamental piece starts from the incident or case management that manages the workload. Then we have our workflow and collaboration, which is the second pillar. That's the ability to centralize workflows, assign tasks, and foster collaboration. This helps the team move in a coordinated fashion and move in locksteps. The next one is orchestration and automation on case management. Orchestration is more focused on that ability to manage or control external systems defined through our connectors. And automation is really focused on the execution side of things. And then there's this last pillar, threat intel management. And that's really about managing multiple threat intelligence formats and sources from one central location, and link those threat data to alerts and incidents. For example, it can extract threat intel from alert data, uploaded files from your emails, and also external threat intelligence sources, and then stores those threat information in a database for other modules to use. There are 4 primary use cases FortiSOAR addresses. Starting from the left is the unified incident response management. That's essentially centralizing and connecting your incident response process. Next is alert triage automation. This second use case focuses on removing false positives and also expediting the overall remediation process by helping to get that common link from all the various alerts. It helps to prioritize things and giving recommendations to the SOC operator. The third use case is on SOC optimization, and that's about having that ability to measure and track progress and keeping track of the security operations KPI with visual dashboards, say to track mean time to response or MTTR. And the last one is SOAR collaboration. And that's really about tying the available expertise to handle the incident together and the coordination among the security team throughout the entire incident lifetime. This flexibility has created opportunities to use the product over and beyond, converting manual tasks to automated ones, and also connecting to new intel sources, including those that are non-traditional, non-standard cybersecurity. To add further context to the threat and help give a better judgment and the severity level and improving the overall situation awareness. And interestingly, while FortiSOAR has been primarily being designed for security operations and incidents, we are increasingly seeing customers using it as automation tools that help expand the usage. And some of the examples is to include the tool to use for onboarding of new staff members, right? And also the reverse is also true. When the staff member leaves the organization, you can use the tool to automate the offboarding of the same people. Now, let's switch gear to the endpoint security market that has been making tremendous transformation in the past 10 years. And it is attributed to this accelerating landscape, especially when it comes to ransomware and other malwares. We have seen the evolution of traditional endpoint antivirus that has more than 90% market penetration and has evolved to the next-gen antivirus, but things still fell through the cracks, and hence the adoption of technologies like endpoint detection and response. Endpoints being one of the largest attack vector is now made worse, with many having to work from home. It became clear that many companies cannot adequately monitor these off-net devices and can't effectively protect them. They have to rely on the user to be more vigilant as they bring their compute devices home. We also quite quickly start to realize that we can't remediate the situation like we used to do. Everything got harder, and we can't get IT to re-image the notebook, for example, when it gets compromised. We also can't just take the drastic step of isolating the machine because that will just mean disrupting to business. We have that skill shortage that we talked about earlier and how the stress could pile up for the analysts that eventually lead to becoming a human resource issue. Convergence is therefore key. We can't rely solely on protection mechanisms and reporting tools because of the advanced threats, and we are fighting for time to diffuse the threat. We need all these mechanisms to work in tandem so actively we can monitor and help in the business to continue. The traditional signature-based AV and it has now pretty much been folded into the EPP stack, as we call it, and to focus on prevention. EDR solutions that started around 8 years back was originally being used for highly trained incident responders. They will come to the organization only after a breach has been confirmed. And because breach gets so frequent these days, it is now a tool to be used on a daily basis. Organizations are looking to have that integrated functionality that is a combination of EPP and EDR that will give the ability to prevent file-based malware, plus the ability to detect and block malicious activity like fileless attacks that uses PowerShell scripts or weaponized Office documents. And in addition to detection, we also want to have the ability to help investigate, respond, and remediate to inconclusive incidents to help bring back business to the normal state very, very quickly. And ideally, solutions will remove malicious files, roll back, and repair other changes. I talked about earlier that many of us are working from home and we have to cater to a large pool of teleworkers. The question now is how we can make those notebooks that the employees bring home to be more resilient by themselves. Especially now that we can't just walk over to IT like in the good old days, when you suspect something is wrong or it could be compromised, we need the endpoint self-defense to be ramped up. To start off with, we want to have visibility, we want to have continuous visibility, not just on the attack surface. We also want to know what processes are running and if there's anything that is unusual. And then on attack surface, when we want to detect things that has this potential, that's potentially vulnerable on the endpoint, we want the ability to have preemptive control, to actively take action so we can reduce the attack surface and not having to wait for manual patching to close things off. And that is what we call self-protection. If something were to slip through the prevention stack and starts to run, we want the ability to automatically block the malicious action and to stop the encryption. And that is what we call self-defense. And once we have confirmed that it is indeed a malicious threat on the endpoint, we want the ability to be able to remotely remediate and clean it up, roll back the changes, clean up the registry, and return it to a good state without having to re-image the machine. And that's what we call self-healing. I think all these capabilities are important, especially so as we all now have to support a large group of people working from home and working remotely. As much as we hope that threats associated from malware and ransomware can be prevented to begin with, prevention mechanisms today are not 100%, unfortunately. Security, hygiene, and prevention can only do so much, and we still see ransomware bypassing the protection mechanism. In fact, a survey done by SANS back in 2018 shows that only 47% of attacks were detected by your antivirus. So that's definitely something to be concerned about. There could also be other reasons that's stopping you to enhance that endpoint protection mechanism. It could be because they are running really old operating systems, such as the Windows XP, or they can be in an air-gapped environment that can't be connected to the internet. We have the first generation manual EDR, and that's usually called upon after a breach or as part of an audit. There are well-defined security processes to follow, and it could be done within 24 hours if there are no further backlogs and complications. The first generation EDR also look to find indicators of attack that we can triage, although manually, and then also manually containing the threat. This is going to be resource intensive and requires many hours and days from the analyst. That is why we now have the second generation EDR technology. We are mindful that attackers are moving faster, like in ransomware attacks, and we come up with the ability to detect and to diffuse in real time. As an example, imagine if you were to open up a Microsoft Office document that has been modified to trigger a macro, and in turn cause a PowerShell to start reaching out to the external CNC communication. Now, Microsoft Office and PowerShell are all valid and signed applications, but their behavior is looking really strange. So when this process is making a request, we can block this malicious action in real time and then send it across to our playbook to do thorough response. We could terminate the process, among other things. And because we sit at the OS level, we can take some critical indicators such as the IP address and share it across our security fabric. And so this is our FortiEDR. FortiEDR is the result of our recent acquisition of Ensilo in 2019. The Ensilo founders have seen the first generation manual EDR and took interest that there's a time gap and then they require manual response. So they designed the solution to not only focus on prevention, but detection with real-time blocking of that malicious action. And then we can use playbooks within the system to automate the response and with the ability to remotely remediate the situation. And then we can use playbook within the system to automate the response with ability to remotely remediate. And then also go back again to help discover actively to further reduce that attack surface. We now have the visibility. We have visibility not only into the attack surface, but we have visibility into the running processes that has that malicious action. On top of that, we take another step that besides raising an alarm, we also do something about it. And organizations can choose to define that policy preemptively to take control of the situation. As part of reducing the attack surface, we discover applications within the compute device, link them to associated CVEs, and tell you the application ratings. And beyond that, we now also discover rogue devices in the network as well as IoT devices. As an example of how all this help in business continuity, say I'm using Adobe Reader and I'm using an unpatched version of Adobe Reader that has a known CVE. I will still get to read my PDFs, but when I open a weaponized PDF that compromises my Adobe Reader with an outbound communication, I can stop it immediately. And if you look at the relevance of the SOC team, and SOC operator will be given information related to that attack, on what the attack is going on, and also map it to the MITRE technique to give a clear indication what to do next. And depending on how you set up the playbook, it can be set up automatically to delete files, clean up, or to roll back the changes. And like what I shared earlier, FortiEDR is an integral part of our Fortinet security fabric. Today, we have it integrated with our FortiGate, FortiNAC, FortiSandbox, FortiSIEM, and also where we went through in the first part, which is on FortiSOAR, and more will be coming. FortiEDR can be deployed as a native cloud solution, or we can deploy it on-premise or in a hybrid fashion. The client agent that we call as collectors have extensive endpoint support, including legacy Windows, such as Windows XP and Windows Server 2003. We have the ability to continue delivering the protection even after the machine has been compromised, and stops that breach and ransomware encryption in real time. All these are done that we can set the required policies as part of our integrated larger Fortinet fabric for a more efficient and effective setup. Now, not all organizations have a dedicated security operations team, and those that has one may be looking to augment their existing resources. So I also want to introduce two Fortinet responder services that uses the FortiEDR technology that we spoke about. The first one is Managed Detection and Response Service, and it is a proactive service that our analysts operate 24/7 that monitors the events that are coming out from your EDR platform. When that threat has bypassed your security defenses, our analysts are there to identify the malicious actions and analyzing it, and if they need to, they can take action on your behalf. If the organization has not acquired our MDR service, they can still reach out to us for our reactive service. This is the incident response service that helps in the analysis, in the containment, the remediation, and stuff like that. What we are trying to do is to, as quickly as possible, bring the organization back to a working steady state. And we have extremely good technologies for many years, and now we have the people and the processes to extend that help to our customers. For many who are building out and enhancing their security operations, such services will help them reach that maturity level faster. We are seeing this resonate not only to our customers, but also to our partners, because it complements their team in dealing with very complex crisis situations and help in reducing that analyst burnout, knowing there's another highly trained professional team with the right platform that can help, that they can turn to. With that, I hope you took back something interesting today, and until next time, thank you for your time.